Patriotism is defined as the quality of being patriotic and the devotion of vigorous support for one's country, as defined by the Oxford Dictionary. So the question remains, should schools teach students to be patriotic? This is a question that remains open-ended because it can create a controversial response, since it's very universal to the ideals of how society reacts to patriotism in America. Diane Rivich, 2006 article, Should We Teach Patriotism?, outlines her personal agenda of exploring the open-ended question, should schools teach students to be patriotic? While reviewing the article, Diane describes that the extent to which we adhere or admire patriotism in American schools and how it is taught. She provides several examples of uncritical self-praise of our nation's instruction, of development of it being wrong, and that it should be in doctrine rather than education. She further discussed that if we, however, teach civic education and define patriotism as a respectful understanding and the principle of practices of self-government, then patriotism will be woven through our daily lives and the teaching of public schools. Public schools help forge the teaching of the new generation and the ideals of society, so the progression of the nation's belief of individualism should help promote the understanding of patriotism in America. Moreover, while Diane discusses her belief of patriotism integrated in school systems through historical context, Alex Rosenberg, 2007, believed otherwise. Alex Rosenberg denotes that such beliefs are suppressing the true historical context of patriotism. He believed that education of the younger generation of the patriotism in America is only providing the good parts, and that once the generation becomes older, they will soon realize the schemes placed upon patriotism through oppression and finding out the injustices and unfairness glossed over time. Alex provides examples in the article, The Making of Non-Patriotic People, that people will become non-patriotic once the discoveries of the separate but equal, in 1954, but won't disclose such information in the same year, with Earl Warren, who endorsed concentration camps for Japanese American citizens in 1944. And till this day, this decision was never overturned. Or even when the Supreme Court case Brown versus Board of Education, 20 years after the case, segregation began to become worse in America. These examples provided by Alice concluded the understanding that patriotism is only mask, overthrowing many citizens a curveball of accepting patriotism in America. However, Joel Wesemer debated the unveiling question of patriotism of social studies. Social studies is a subject taught throughout school, starting in some schools at the age of 6. In November of 2001, less than 2 months after the terrorist attack on World War Trade Center, Nebraska State Board of Education approved the Patriotism Bill, specifying content for the high school social studies curriculum in accordance with the state's 1949 statute. This was in Wesemer in 2009. And the Board of Education discussed that the social science should further disclose the love of America and reverence to the flag. Since then, more states approved the change in curriculum and has influenced the education of social science to what it is today. Wesemer believed that there are many ways to express our commitment to our country and that patriotism is a commitment not to the government, but to the ideals of equality, compassion, and justice. Furthermore, DOTS 2019 Education Foundation articulated how the political nature of education has been influenced by ideologies conflicts. The federal government presumed dominance over the educational sector through the use of funding, but ultimately provided states the opportunity to make the decision regarding educational practices. The article further provides examples of different presidents that alerted the understanding of liberalism and ultimately influenced patriotism for education over time, even today. While the discussion and the question of whether schools should teach students to be patriotic still remains open-ended, after reviewing all the articles discussed, I believe that patriotism should be taught in education. Despite diplomatic issues regarding injustice and unfairness throughout the historical period, it helps the next generation grow from these mistakes and overturning these overarching issues into a better nation.